Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
The kid looked like she'd been through a war zone, and my in-laws? Nowhere in sight. My name's Darren Langford. I'm 41 years old and I run a welding supply business just outside of Chattanooga. I've been at it for over a decade now, long enough to know the value of loyalty, trust, and getting your hands dirty when it matters. That day started like any other, until it didn't. I was supposed to be out of town, a distributor conference in Dallas. Flight got canceled last minute due to weather. I could have stuck around and waited for the next one, but honestly, I just wanted to come home. Figured I'd surprise the family. Kelsey, my wife, had flown to Miami that morning for some tech summit. Her folks, Tom and Diane, offered to watch our daughter, Emmy, while we were both away. I wasn't thrilled about it, never have been really. But our usual sitter was in Hawaii, and Kelsey's brother couldn't help, so it was either them or no one. Emmy was 9, bright, kind, quiet around adults she didn't know well. And technically, she was my niece. But she's been mine since the day I signed the papers. When I pulled into the driveway, everything felt off. The house was still, the curtains were drawn, no car in the driveway. Tom and Diane's SUV was gone. I thought maybe they took Emmy out somewhere, a park maybe. Movie theater. But the house was unlocked. Inside it was too quiet. No TV, no laughter, no sound of footsteps upstairs. Just this faint, rhythmic noise coming from the kitchen, like scrubbing. I walked in and there she was, Emmy, on her knees in the corner of the kitchen, holding a red sponge in one hand and an old bucket in the other. Her fingers were pink and raw. The tile floor beneath her looked freshly soaked. She didn't see me at first. She was so focused, like she was trying to scrub something away that wouldn't go. My stomach dropped. "Em?" I said. She froze, shoulders tightening. Then she looked up at me, her eyes wide like a raccoon caught in headlights. Her face was flushed, sweaty. Her hair stuck to her forehead in little damp strands, and her hands, God, her little hands looked raw. "Daddy," she said in this small voice, I'm almost done. I just need a few more minutes." "What are you doing?" I asked. My voice sounded too loud in that quiet kitchen. She looked down at the sponge in her hand, then back up at me. "Grandma said I had to finish the floor before I could have dessert." "Where is Grandma?" I asked, my heart starting to pound now. "They went to Wild World," she said, "with Autumn." I blinked. "They what?" "They said I had to stay and clean, because I wasn't being grateful enough." Wild World was the biggest amusement park in the state. Rides, games, parades, everything a kid could dream of. We'd been saving up to take Emmy there in the fall. Autumn was her cousin, Diane and Tom's real granddaughter, their biological granddaughter. "They left you here?" I said slowly. "Alone?" She nodded. "Just for a little bit. They said they'd be back by dinner time. I had to earn my place." Something inside me snapped, quietly, not with shouting or rage, just this internal break, like a gear that finally ground loose. I helped Emmy up off the floor and carried her to the sink. I washed her hands with warm water and soap, gently, like I was handling glass. She winced. I dried them with a towel and wrapped her fingers loosely. Then I grabbed her coat and we got in the truck. I took her for ice cream. We sat there in a booth at Dairy King, her with a giant swirl cone and me with a coffee, and I just let her talk. I didn't press, didn't interrupt. I just listened. She told me about being made to scrub the bathroom yesterday because she talked back when she said she missed me. She said they'd told her Autumn needed the day off from school because she was gifted, but Emmy had to keep up her reading or she'd fall behind. She told me they'd taken Autumn out to see a movie last week while she stayed behind to practice responsibility. She told me how they made her sit in the laundry room to eat lunch because she was being moody, and she still thought it was her fault. That was what broke me more than anything. She didn't cry. Emmy doesn't cry easily, but she sat there with her ice cream and looked out the window like she was trying to figure out how to be good enough, how to be wanted. I called Kelsey then and there, told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "I'm on the next flight home," she said. "Tell Emmy she's not in trouble. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'll be there soon." And that's what I did, because my daughter didn't need a lesson in humility. She needed her parents. That night, when Tom and Diane walked through the front door all sunburned and smiling, bags of souvenirs in their hands, I was sitting on the couch waiting for them. So was Emmy. I wasn't always a dad. That came the hard way. My name is Darren Langford. I was 30 years old when my whole life changed. Back then, I was still building up the welding supply shop, working 6 days a week, chasing invoices, trying to convince local contractors I wasn't just another guy selling gas and wire. No wife, no kids. I lived in a one-bedroom place over the shop. and most nights dinner was takeout eaten at my desk. Then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. My sister Mallory and her husband Craig were driving back from a weekend at the lake. Drunk driver blew through a stop sign. T-boned them full speed. They never made it out of the intersection. Emmy was 3 years old. I still remember the sound of her crying when the officer brought her to me at the hospital. She didn't understand. She just kept saying, "Where's Mommy?" over and over, like if she asked enough, someone would fix it. Nobody could fix it. The weeks that followed were a blur. Paperwork, court hearings, meetings with social workers. Everyone suddenly had an opinion about what was best for her. Craig's parents filed for temporary custody. They lived in Illinois. Said they could offer her a more stable home. I wasn't even considered at first. A single guy living above a warehouse with no parenting experience? Not exactly ideal on paper. But I fought. I showed up in court every single time. I met every requirement, passed every check. I took parenting classes on my only day off. I baby-proofed the shop apartment myself. And when the social worker did her final visit and saw Emmy curled up on my chest, asleep with her pacifier and her favorite blanket, something shifted. 2 months later, the adoption went through. I became her father. The first few years were hard. She had night terrors, would wake up screaming in the middle of the night and cling to me like the world was ending. There were tantrums, regression, silence. She wouldn't speak some days, just sat with her stuffed animals and lined them up over and over. But we found our rhythm, slowly. I started closing the shop earlier. I turned the office into a playroom. I learned how to braid hair, cook spaghetti that didn't come from a can, read bedtime stories in a way that made her giggle. She called me Uncle Daddy for a while, then just Daddy. When she turned 5, I threw her a birthday party at the park. Rented a bounce house, invited everyone from daycare. That was also the day I introduced her to Kelsey. Kelsey was my second chance at something good. We met at a supply trade show in Atlanta. She worked in tech, logistics software for construction fleets. Smart, funny, way out of my league. But when I mentioned Emmy, she leaned in like she actually cared. We started slow, dinner dates, park meetups. Emmy took to her immediately. By our 6th date, Kelsey was reading her bedtime stories and helping with bath time like she'd been doing it forever. 2 years later, we got married. We did it simple. Outdoors, under the old oak tree behind the shop. Emmy wore a little white dress with pink flowers and carried both our rings tied to a ribbon. She was our flower girl and ring bearer rolled into one. We didn't call her a stepdaughter. We didn't say adopted. She was just our daughter, period. Tom and Diane, Kelsey's parents, came to the wedding. They wore stiff smiles and brought a blender from our registry, even though we already had one. They took photos with us, stood politely during the vows. But afterward, I noticed how Diane only took pictures with Autumn, their other granddaughter, and how Tom kept disappearing during the reception. At first, I figured it was nerves. Maybe they needed time, but time passed. Birthdays, holidays, Sunday dinners, and the cold shoulder never really warmed. Emmy would run up to them, eager to show off a drawing or a spelling test, and Diane would nod like she was pretending to care. Tom never said much, just grunted or asked about school like he was checking a box. Kelsey saw it too. I asked her once, "Do they have a problem with her being adopted?" She paused, then said, "They're just old-fashioned." "Old-fashioned," I repeated. "Or judgmental?" She didn't answer. I tried not to make it a thing. I told myself maybe they'd come around. I mean, who couldn't love Emmy? She was bright, sweet. She always brought her own markers to family dinners so she wouldn't bother anyone. She made little thank you cards for every gift, no matter how small. But no matter how hard she tried, Tom and Diane kept her at arm's length. They were never cruel, just indifferent. That's almost worse. You can't fix indifferent. You can't fight it, argue with it, or reason it away. It's like screaming into a vacuum. Still, I kept hoping. Kelsey did too. Maybe they just needed time, but the warmth never came. And now, looking back, maybe it never would have. Not unless we forced them to see the truth. Emmy was ours, entirely. No asterisk, no footnote, no technically. She was our daughter, and no amount of bloodlines was going to change that. The first time I noticed it, really noticed it, was Christmas. Emmy was 6. Autumn had just turned 7. We were doing the usual holiday thing at Tom and Diane's house, matching pajamas, eggnog and red mugs, that weird fruitcake no one touched. The grandkids opened presents together in front of the fireplace while everyone hovered, smiling and snapping photos. Autumn tore into her first gift, big pink wrapping paper, gold bow, and pulled out a brand new Kindle. The good one with the case shaped like a unicorn. Emmy's gift came next. Same size box, different wrapping. Inside was a puzzle. one of those dollar store ones with 30 pieces and a picture of a barnyard. I didn't say anything at the time, just smiled, helped Emmy tear away the rest of the paper, and watched her say thank you like I'd taught her. But I saw the look in her eyes, that little flicker of disappointment, that question she didn't ask. Maybe it was just a fluke, I told myself, but it kept happening. At Autumn's birthday party, they rented out a whole gymnastics gym, popcorn machine, balloon animals, the works. When Emmy turned 8 a month later, Tom and Diane brought her a $10 coloring book and skipped the party entirely, said they were traveling that weekend. At family dinners, Diane would fawn over Autumn's science fair project, our little Marie Curie, and then turn to Emmy with a pat on the head and a "How's school, sweetie?" Never a follow-up, never a real question. Once, Emmy told Diane she liked drawing unicorns. The next week, Autumn got a unicorn-themed stationery set just because. Emmy got socks. Still, Emmy didn't complain. That was the part that killed me. She never threw a tantrum. Never asked why Autumn always got the front seat or why Grandma Diane brought her cousin shopping but never invited her. Emmy just sat back and watched, smiled politely, said thank you for whatever scraps she got. Until one night about a year ago, I was tucking her in, smoothing the covers the way she liked, edges tight, corner turned down. She had that little plush dragon in her arms, the one she named Pickle, and out of nowhere she said, "Do Grandma and Grandpa think I don't belong?" It hit me like a punch in the chest. "What makes you say that?" I asked. She shrugged, real small. "They're nicer to Autumn, like she's theirs." I sat down on the edge of the bed. "Emmy," I said, "you're just as much theirs. You're part of this family, all the way." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. Not all the way, anyway. Later that night, I brought it up to Kelsey. "Have you noticed it?" I asked. "The way your folks treat Emmy?" She was quiet for a second. Then she sighed. "Yeah, I have." "So?" "They're just old-fashioned," she said, like that explained it. "Give it time." I didn't like that answer, but I let it go. I wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like, that maybe it was unconscious, subtle, fixable. But giving it time turned out to be a bad bet. It wasn't just random favoritism, it was intentional, calculated. There was that afternoon at Diane's house when I came to pick Emmy up early. Autumn was in the living room with a bowl of popcorn watching cartoons. Emmy was folding laundry in the back room. Diane smiled like it was perfectly normal. "She needs to learn the value of hard work," she said. "She's 8, I replied. "Exactly." Another time, Emmy told me Diane had said Autumn was first in line when it came to family trips and vacations because she's our only real granddaughter. Real. That word lingered in my head like a bitter aftertaste. I started noticing more, Diane correcting Emmy's table manners in front of everyone, Tom calling Autumn our little legacy during a toast, the way Emmy always offered to help clean up, hoping it might earn her some invisible points, while Autumn got to run off and play. And Kelsey, she still brushed it off. Not out of malice, just out of habit. A habit of believing the best in her parents. A habit I was slowly losing. I started keeping score, mentally. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see if I was going crazy. Every uneven gift, every backhanded comment, every invitation forgotten or excuse made. By the end of that year, the scoreboard wasn't close. And Emmy, she just kept shrinking into herself, getting quieter, more careful, like love had become something she had to earn. That was the hardest part to watch, because no matter how much I loved her, and I did, with everything I had, I couldn't protect her from the people who claimed to love her too. And now, after what I walked in on in that kitchen, I realized the favoritism hadn't just damaged her, it was breaking her, piece by piece. And I was done watching it happen. It started with a scheduling disaster. I had to fly to Denver. One of our major suppliers was switching warehouses, and something got botched in the paperwork. Orders were being duplicated, inventory going missing. I had to show up in person to get it sorted. Last minute, urgent, no way around it. Kelsey had a tech summit in Miami that same week, also non-negotiable. She was presenting a new routing algorithm her team had been working on for months. Missing it wasn't an option. We stared at our shared calendar in silence, both trying to solve a puzzle with no pieces. "What about Angie?" I said, thinking of our regular sitter. Kelsey checked her phone. "In Hawaii for her cousin's wedding, all week." "My brother?" I offered. "He owes me. He's swamped with that new contractor job. Hasn't even seen his own kids in days." We went through every name, every option, nothing. Then Kelsey hesitated. "My parents offered," she said carefully. I raised an eyebrow. "They did?" "Yeah. I mentioned we were stuck, and Mom said they could take Emmy for a few days, just until we're back." I leaned back in my chair and let that settle. I don't like it, I said. Not after the way they've been with her lately. I know, but maybe this is a chance for them to prove they care, to step up. They know we're watching now. I didn't answer. Darren, she said, her voice soft. I get it, I do. But I can't cancel Miami. You can't cancel Denver. We're out of options. I looked at her, and then down the hall where I could hear Emmy humming to herself, probably building another Lego spaceship. 3 days, I said. That's it. If they screw this up, they're done. No more overnights, no more. Maybe they'll warm up. We pull the plug. Kelsey nodded. 3 days. When I told Emmy, she didn't complain. That was almost worse. She just gave this little nod, eyes flicking to the floor. Okay, she said. I'll be good. You're always good, I told her, crouching down. But this isn't about being good. This is about staying safe. We left a list, your bedtime stuff is packed, and I'll FaceTime you every night. Got it? She nodded again, smiled even. But it was tight, fragile. Sunday morning, we dropped her off at Tom and Diane's place. The air was weird, too polite. Diane opened the door like we were there to deliver groceries. Tom stood behind her, arms crossed, smiling just enough to be noticed. Hello, sweetie, Diane said to Emmy, reaching out like she was greeting a guest at a hotel. Come in, let's get you settled. Kelsey hugged Emmy tight. I did the same. You call me if anything feels off, I whispered. Anything at all. She nodded against my shoulder. Back in the car, I stared straight ahead. You think this'll help? I asked Kelsey. Show them who she really is? I hope so, she said. They said they want to build a better relationship. But hope, as I've learned, is not a plan. I left notes, routines, meal instructions, Emmy's allergy list, her bedtime playlist, even a laminated card with our numbers and emergency contacts, because I thought I was just stepping away for a few days. But Tom and Diane, they saw it as their opportunity. To reset the rules. To make their message clear, Emmy wasn't really one of them. She wasn't blood. She was a favor they tolerated, a burden to mold, a mistake to correct. And we handed them the keys. It still makes my stomach twist to think about that. How I tried to believe just one more time that they might change. But some people don't change. They just get better at hiding who they are, until the moment they think no one's watching. And this time, they were wrong. Because I came home early, and I saw it for myself. The universe has a funny way of throwing you back into the fire just when you think you've escaped it. My flight back from Denver was supposed to be the red-eye home on Thursday, but a mechanical issue canceled the connection out of Atlanta, and next thing I knew, I was back at the gate with an open seat on an earlier flight. I took it. Figured I'd surprise Emmy, maybe even get a jump on the weekend. Kelsey was still in Miami, wrapping up her summit. We'd planned to regroup Friday night. I pulled into our driveway just before 4 p.m. sun was still up. Breezy, late spring air. But something was off the second I parked. No SUV. Tom and Diane were supposed to be there. They'd agreed Emmy wouldn't be left alone, not for a second. That was part of the deal. I grabbed my bag and headed inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No cartoons. No soft music, no pots clanking in the kitchen, just silence. And then faint, wet sounds, like someone was scrubbing. I followed it into the kitchen, and there she was, my daughter, my Emmy, on her knees beside a bucket of soapy water, scrubbing the floor with a sponge so old the color was almost gone. Her hair was tied in a lopsided ponytail, her face was flushed red, her arms damp up to the elbows. She didn't even notice me until I stepped into the room. When she looked up, her expression wasn't surprise, it was guilt. Like she was the one doing something wrong. Emmy, I said. My voice came out like gravel. What are you doing? She froze. Her little body went stiff like a dog expecting to get scolded. Grandma said I had to finish the kitchen before I could have dessert, she whispered. Autumn got ice cream. I got a chore. I just stood there, processing, trying to stay calm. Where are they? I asked. They went to Wild World, she said quietly. With Autumn. Grandma said I didn't earn a treat. I knelt down slowly. They left you here? Alone? Her eyes welled up. They said they'd be back before dinner. They said I talk too much and don't listen. Autumn got all A's, so she deserved a reward. I needed to learn responsibility. I felt something boil in my chest, a slow, dangerous burn. I took the sponge from her hand, set it in the bucket, and lifted her up. That's enough, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. You're not cleaning one more inch of this house. Her fingers were raw. The skin on her knuckles was red and cracked. I led her to the bathroom, filled the sink with warm water, and gently washed her hands. She winced. Then I wrapped them in a towel, gave her a soft hoodie to wear, and drove her to Dairy King. Same booth as last time, same swirl cone. I got a milkshake this time because I knew I couldn't stomach coffee. She didn't say much at first, but by the second bite, she started talking. It spilled out slowly, how Tom and Diane made her wake up an hour earlier than Autumn to make her own breakfast, how she had to earn her screen time with chores, how they told her Autumn was more like us and Emmy needed to try harder. They told me I talk back too much, she said, that I don't smile enough, that I make people uncomfortable. My fists clenched on the table. How often did they leave you alone? I asked. She hesitated. Sometimes when they went shopping or to the movies, they said I didn't need to come. I texted Kelsey then and there. They left her alone. She was scrubbing floors. Call me as soon as you land, she replied within minutes. I'm changing my flight, tonight. When we got home, I helped Emmy change into pajamas and turned on a movie for her. Then I waited. They showed up around 7:30. I heard the SUV in the driveway. The front door opened, and there they were, Tom and Diane, all smiles, sun-kissed, carrying shopping bags full of Wild World souvenirs. Diane had on a visor. Tom had a #1 grandpa shirt. Where's Emmy? Diane asked, setting the bags down. Recovering, I said. I was sitting in the living room with my arms crossed, phone in hand. Tom blinked. What's that supposed to mean? She's resting, I said. From being abandoned. From being used like a housemaid while you took Autumn on a joyride. Diane narrowed her eyes. Excuse me? You heard me, I said. I came home early, found her on the kitchen floor, alone, scrubbing tile with cracked hands, at 9 years old. Tom tried to deflect. We told her to do a little chore, just to earn her keep. She's a child, I snapped. Not your damn employee. Diane crossed her arms. We were trying to teach her some discipline. Kids these days. She's not your child, I cut in, and she's not your test dummy for twisted lessons on earning love. They looked stunned, like they were being ambushed unfairly. This is dramatic, Diane muttered. We've raised children. We know what works. She's not a what, I said. She's Emmy. And what you did wasn't parenting, it was abuse. She thought being left behind was her fault. They started to protest again, but I stood up. I want you out of this house, I said. Now. You can't be serious, Tom said. We were doing you a favor. You left a child alone, multiple times. You punished her for existing. We're done. Just then, the front door opened again. Kelsey walked in, suitcase in one hand, rage in her eyes. She looked at her parents. You did what? She said, her voice low and dangerous. Tom started. We were just... Save it, Kelsey snapped. Go. You are not welcome here. Not tonight. Not again. Not until you understand what you've done. Diane opened her mouth, but Kelsey cut her off. Don't. You don't get to explain. You get to leave. They didn't argue after that. And when the door shut behind them, Kelsey collapsed onto the couch and held Emmy close. And I realized this wasn't the end of a bad week. It was the start of a reckoning, because this time we weren't looking the other way, not anymore. That night, Emmy curled up on the couch with Kelsey, buried under her favorite blanket, her face pressed into her mom's shoulder. She wasn't crying, just quiet. Quiet in that heavy way where you know a kid is trying to hold everything in to keep from falling apart. I sat across from them, watching the movie play without sound, thinking of everything she'd told me in that Dairy King booth. It wasn't new. It wasn't just that one day. They'd been doing this to her for a while, leaving her behind, handing out chores like punishments, letting Autumn live like a princess while Emmy scrubbed and folded and sat alone. And somehow, Emmy still thought it was her fault. The next morning, Kelsey and I sat her down at the kitchen table. Sunlight streamed in from the window, making the place feel warmer than it should have. Emmy, Kelsey said softly, taking her hand, none of this was your fault. Not one bit, I added. You didn't do anything wrong. She looked from me to her mom, unsure. You're not in trouble, Kelsey said. You're safe. We believe you. And we're going to fix this. We made pancakes, her favorite, with chocolate chips and way too much whipped cream. She even smiled, a real one this time. But we both knew the day wasn't over. Around 11, Tom and Diane came back. They walked in like nothing happened, like they hadn't left a child alone to clean their kitchen while they stood in line for a roller coaster with their real granddaughter. Hey, where's our girl? Tom called as he set a souvenir bag on the table. Emmy's not coming out, I said, standing. She's resting, from your version of parenting. Diane's face twisted. Excuse me? Kelsey was already coming down the stairs. She didn't even look at them. You need to leave, she said coldly. Now! Tom blinked. We just got here. You shouldn't have come back at all, I said, stepping between them and the rest of the house. Diane scoffed. Oh, come on, she had a few chores, that's hardly abuse. We were teaching her how to be grateful. By leaving her alone, I said? By punishing her while spoiling Autumn? She's not even our... Diane stopped herself, but the damage was done. Kelsey froze. Finish that sentence, she said. Diane looked down, suddenly interested in her handbag. Say it, Kelsey said, voice shaking. She's not your what? Our responsibility, Diane snapped, then tried to smooth it over. Look, Kels, you brought her into this family. We've done our best to include her, but there's only so much we can do. Tom added, It's not like we don't care about her, but Autumn is our granddaughter. Emmy, she's yours. I couldn't stop the laugh that came out, short, bitter. You think love has to be biological? I asked. You think DNA is what makes you family? Don't twist our words, Tom said. We're just saying it's different. No, Kelsey said. You're saying it's less. You've been treating Emmy like less since the day we got married, like she's this side project I brought home. She is our daughter, I said, louder now. You don't get to decide who counts. Diane crossed her arms. We gave you a break, watched her for 3 days so you could go gallivanting around the country. And in return, I said, you abandoned her. We went to Wild World, Tom shouted. We weren't gone for that long. You left a 9-year-old alone with a mop and a list of rules while you took your golden granddaughter out for ice cream and souvenirs, I said, fists clenching. You don't see the problem because you are the problem. Tom threw up his hands. You're blowing this out of proportion. Am I? Kelsey said. Because the look on my daughter's face says otherwise. She didn't want to tell us what happened because she thought we'd be disappointed in her. Diane rolled her eyes. Well, maybe if you didn't coddle her... No, Kelsey said sharply. No more of that. You don't get to spin this. You don't get to hide behind your discipline and old-fashioned values. You hurt our child, repeatedly. She needs tough love, Diane argued. She needs love, I shot back. That's it. Just love, no strings, no conditions, no comparison charts with Autumn. There was silence, heavy, awkward, final. You're not welcome here anymore, Kelsey said. Her voice was calm, but there was no softness in it. Tom looked stunned. Kels, I mean it, she said. Until you acknowledge what you did and apologize to Emmy, you're out. No visits, no phone calls, no pretending everything's fine, Diane scoffed. You'd cut out your own parents? Over this? Kelsey looked right at her. Yes. I handed them their bags, already packed. Tom took his without a word. Diane stood frozen, still trying to work some angle, but there was nothing left to salvage. You think you're in control, I told them. Not anymore. As they walked out, Diane muttered something about how we'd regret this, about how they were just trying to help. But Kelsey didn't flinch. She closed the door behind them and turned the deadbolt. For the first time in a long time, the house felt safe again. We went back to the living room. Emmy was sitting at the top of the stairs, her dragon plush in her lap. Kelsey looked up at her. They're gone, she said, and they're not coming back, not unless they change. Emmy nodded, quiet, processing. Then she stood up, walked down the stairs, and curled up between us on the couch. She didn't say a word, just leaned her head on my shoulder. And that was all I needed to know. We'd done the right thing. Lines had been drawn, and we weren't moving them. We didn't hear from Tom and Diane for 3 days. Then the messages started. First it was a text to Kelsey. We just wanted to teach Emmy some responsibility. You've completely overreacted. Then one to me. This is what happens when kids are coddled. You'll regret turning her into a victim. They didn't apologize, didn't ask how Emmy was, just defended themselves, like they'd been caught doing something noble that the world didn't understand. Next came the calls, to other relatives. Aunt Jean messaged Kelsey asking why we blew up over a misunderstanding. One of Kelsey's cousins posted a vague quote on Facebook about entitled people twisting the truth. Classic family smoke signals. But the thing about narratives, they don't hold up when the truth starts slipping out. It was Kelsey's younger brother Michael who saw through the fog first. He called us after a couple days. I heard Mom and Dad's version, he said. Then Lily told me something. Lily, his 10-year-old daughter. She said Emmy's stayed behind before, like when they went to the movies or shopping. I asked her how many times. She just said, a lot. Michael paused. They've been doing this for a while, haven't they? Yeah, I said. They have. He didn't say much more, but the tone in his voice had shifted. It was the sound of someone adjusting a long-held belief. One brick sliding loose in the wall. Other cracks started to show. One of Kelsey's aunts emailed her. I didn't know. I'm sorry. If there's anything Emmy needs... A few friends we usually saw at holidays stopped responding to Diane's group messages. We weren't trying to turn people against them, but the truth has a way of making its way out, no matter how pretty the spin job. Meanwhile, we focused on Emmy. We got her into therapy that same week, a counselor who specialized in child trauma and family attachment issues. Emmy was hesitant at first. She didn't want to talk bad about people, she said, but after the first session, she came out quieter than usual, but lighter somehow. She told me I didn't have to pretend it didn't happen, she said that night while brushing her teeth. She's right, I told her. You don't. Over the weeks that followed, we heard more. About how Diane used to joke that Emmy was lucky to live in a real house. About how Tom would give Autumn seconds at dinner but tell Emmy she'd had enough. About how Emmy once drew a family picture with all of us in it, and Diane said, "Oh, sweetie, you forgot your real mommy." Death by 1,000 cuts. Little moments, quiet humiliations that had stacked up over time like bricks on Emmy's back. She'd carried them all, thinking they were her burden to bear, thinking maybe if she was just more helpful, more cheerful, more perfect, they'd love her like they loved Autumn, and that's what gutted me the most. She thought she was the problem. In therapy, she started drawing again, not for praise, just for herself. Pictures of our family that no longer included Tom or Diane. Pictures of herself smiling, standing tall next to me and Kelsey. She started sleeping through the night again. She stopped asking if Grandma was mad at her. Instead, she asked if we could go to the lake this summer, if we could paint her room a different color, if we could invite Lily over for a sleepover. The light was coming back slowly, day by day. Kelsey wrestled with it all in her own way. Some nights she cried, quietly in the bedroom thinking I was asleep. Other nights she was angry, at herself for not noticing sooner, for brushing it off as harmless favoritism. "They were hurting her right under our noses," she said once, staring at the ceiling. "And I let them." "You didn't let them," I said. "You believed they were better than they were. That's not weakness. That's hope." But Emmy paid the price. I didn't have a good answer to that. Not really. But I did know one thing. It wasn't going to happen again. The family's golden narrative, Tom and Diane, the doting grandparents, was cracking. People were starting to question what they'd always accepted. And Emmy? She wasn't the scapegoat anymore. She was the girl who had survived it with grace. And we were the parents who would make damn sure no one ever made her feel small again. We didn't do anything dramatic at first. No big announcements. No scorched earth messages, just quiet boundaries, sharp ones, no more overnights. No alone time with Tom and Diane. Every visit, if there was one, would happen in public, with both me and Kelsey present. Restaurants, parks, neutral ground where they couldn't slip in snide comments or accidentally forget Emmy existed. But honestly, they didn't push for visits. They'd been exposed. And exposure has a way of making the boldest people go silent. Diane still sent birthday cards, always signed, "Love, Grandma and Grandpa," sometimes with a sticker on the envelope that said, "Thinking of you." Emmy didn't rush to open them. Sometimes she didn't open them at all, and we didn't force it. Because healing doesn't come from pretending everything's fine, it comes from building new things, from filling the space left behind. So we started doing Sunday cookouts. Just us, Emmy, a few close friends, and sometimes her classmates' families. Nothing fancy, hot dogs, corn on the grill, old folding chairs in the backyard. But they became sacred. Emmy would run through the yard barefoot, hair flying, squealing when someone tried to tag her. We'd stay out until dark, roasting marshmallows and watching fireflies blink in the grass. She laughed again. A real laugh, loud and wild and full of life. The kind that spills out before a person even realizes they're happy. She started sleeping through the night without waking up in a sweat. No more checking the hallway light to make sure we were still home. No more asking if she was in trouble for little things like spilling juice or forgetting to put her shoes away. She stopped asking, "Is Grandma mad at me?" She started asking, "Can we invite Sophie over?" Or, "Can I bake cookies for movie night?" Normal stuff, kid stuff. Kelsey decorated Emmy's room with her. They painted one wall lavender, strung up twinkle lights, made a collage of photos, us at the lake, Emmy's art projects, goofy selfies with friends. She even framed one of Emmy's newest drawings, our family, stick figure style, standing under a tree with the words "Home" written in bright green above us. Autumn stayed in Emmy's life. That was never the problem. The girls had always gotten along. Autumn was sweet, a little oblivious maybe, but she was just a kid too. She didn't know how uneven the playing field had been. Now when they hung out, it was at our house, on our terms, no grandparents hovering, no hierarchy. Just two girls watching cartoons and trading stickers. Diane didn't like the new rules. That much was clear from the tone of her texts. We're still her grandparents, whether you like it or not. You're poisoning her against us. This is emotional blackmail. We didn't reply. Let the silence do the talking. Tom, though, he started changing. Little things. He came to one of the cookouts, just him, said he was in the neighborhood, and brought a six-pack and a box of popsicles, stood awkwardly on the edge of the yard, watching Emmy run through the sprinkler with Sophie and Autumn. I thought she might like these, he said, holding out the popsicles. Emmy eyed him warily at first, but she took one, said thank you quietly, then ran back to her game. He stayed for half an hour, then left without fanfare. Next week he came again, helped set up folding chairs. Didn't try to talk about Diane. Didn't try to justify anything, just watched his granddaughter laugh and didn't look away. It wasn't a grand gesture, but sometimes healing starts in the small things, the quiet choices, the showing up. We weren't building a perfect family, just a real one. And real families draw the line where it matters. Not at blood, not at tradition, at love, respect, consistency. We gave Emmy what she'd always needed, a home where she didn't have to earn affection, where she didn't have to wonder if she was wanted. She already was, always had been, and now she finally believed it too. 6 months later, we were sitting at Marcy's Diner, the kind of place where every booth has cracked red vinyl, and the menu hasn't changed since 1982. Emmy loved the pancakes there, said they were better than the fancy ones with berries. She was 13 now, taller, more confident, a little sassier. Therapy was helping, so was time. We weren't expecting anyone else that morning, just a lazy Saturday breakfast. But when the bell over the door jingled and I looked up, I saw Diane. Not Tom, just her. She stood there for a second, like she was waiting to be noticed, or maybe talked herself out of walking back out. Then she made her way over to our table slowly. "May I sit?" she asked. I looked at Emmy. Her eyes were wide, but she didn't flinch. Kelsey nodded once. "Go ahead." Diane sat across from us. She looked older, not just in the face, but in the posture, like the weight of everything she'd carried and everything she'd done was finally pressing down on her. She started, clearing her throat. "I've been thinking. A lot." Silence. She folded her hands on the table, then turned to Emmy. Not to me, not to Kelsey, just to her. "I was wrong," she said. Emmy blinked. "About what?" Diane's mouth twitched. "About you. About everything, really. I didn't treat you right. I treated you like you were an outsider in a family you were already part of, and I don't expect you to forget that. But I need you to know I know it now." She was shaking, hands trembling slightly. "I made excuses. Blamed your dad. Blamed your mom. But it was me. I saw blood and thought that meant love. But it doesn't. Love isn't biology. It's showing up. I didn't show up for you, Emmy." For a long moment no one spoke. The sounds of clinking silverware and murmured conversations buzzed around us like background noise, but our booth felt like its own world. Emmy looked at her plate, then back at Diane. "I forgive you," she said. Then, just as clearly, "But I still want Daddy around when we visit." My throat tightened. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Diane nodded, swallowing hard. Of course. Then Tom walked in. He must have been waiting outside. He came over slower than Diane had, hands in his jacket pockets. He looked at Emmy and smiled. Not the tight, practiced one from before. A real smile. Nervous. Honest. "You're part of this family, kiddo," he said. "Always were. We just had to catch up." Emmy gave him a small smile. "I like pancakes," she said. "They have good ones here." He nodded. "Mind if I order some?" She shrugged. "Your call." We all chuckled, just a little. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase what happened. But it wasn't supposed to. Forgiveness doesn't wipe the slate clean. It just loosens the grip the past has on your neck. Later, when we got back in the car, Emmy climbed into the back seat and pulled her seatbelt across. I started the engine, looked in the rear view. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah." "You sure?" She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I am." She pulled out her sketch pad, already scribbling something. A girl under a tree, a woman and man next to her, everyone holding hands, and I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Of boundaries that stuck, of traditions we chose, of a girl who finally saw her place in the world as unshakable. And me, I was still her dad. Not because I had to be, but because I never stopped choosing to be. Every single day.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.